Hi, welcome back to the Writer's Parachute. We are guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Adrian Starks. He is a keynote speaker, podcaster, narrator, best-selling author, and the founder of the Champion Up Network. What is it? But Champion Up, it's his mission in life, and he does an amazing job. I am so excited. I'm a little flabbergasted to have him here today, so just bear with me if I go off on the fangirl thing. So we're excited to have him today, and he's going to be talking about amazing things with us today, so we're very excited about that. But before we get started, of course, we always have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Don't forget to go like, share, and follow the Writer's Parachute. You can follow us here on YouTube and on all podcasting channels. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Writer Parachute with no S. So let's go ahead and get on with today's show. And as before, in February, we have been doing New You in 2022. And so today we're continuing that. We'll continue that just for this week. Next month, we'll have something new for you. So we're talking about self-care. And the final one I want to talk to you about self-care is about filling that creative bucket. We all run around like crazy creatives and we just give, and we pour, and we think that it is an endless well, but it's not. So we need to fill that creative bucket. And I want to kind of focus you a little bit on how to create that bucket. So I talk about reading and reviewing other people's works. I find it very helpful for me because I can look at what others are doing, how they are approaching things. I look at scenes and the way they make the tension work. I look at how they phrase things, how they layer in topics and ideas into their books. And I find this helps me find my creative center and get the best work that I can for myself as a writer, as an author, but in a lot of other aspects, it sparks inspiration and ideas that I had never considered. So I want you to think about new in 2022, what you're reading. Are you looking at it from an author-writer perspective, or are you only just reading for pleasure? Now, there's nothing wrong with reading for pleasure, and we do need that for downtime. But I want you to think about when you are filling your creative bucket to look at these books and a little more circumspect as a writer and as an author and see what you can gain from it. So I hope that's helpful for you. And of course, as always, I would love to know what you're doing new in 2022 for self-care for yourself as an author, as a writer, as a listener. So if you could leave me a note in the comments, I would appreciate that. So let's get on with the show. And of course, we are so excited to have today with us Adrian Starks. He is going to be talking to us about so many things. I can't even list them all. Adrian is a keynote speaker, podcaster, narrator, best-selling author, and founder of Champion Up. His mission is to help entrepreneurs, students, individuals, and organizations with teams who are feeling stuck, uninspired, or unfulfilled to become their own change makers. He gives them tools and strategies to get out of the ruts they're in and will empower these individuals to find opportunities within those challenges. No matter how stressful their environment may be, Adrian lives by his supportive changemaker philosophy that began with the desire to help others see that they can courageously make their own changes and become their very own champion in any endeavor. Welcome to the show, Adrian. How are you today?
Donna, it is absolutely a pleasure to be on the show, and I'm doing wonderful now that I'm sitting right here with you in real time, my friend.
So I'm so excited. I've been talking about this upcoming podcast for such a long time. I was just so excited when you said yes. So thank you for that. You know, you are just so many things. It's hard for me to quantify it, and you offer an inspiring platform to anyone who wants to make productive change. Mm-hmm. So how did you get to that passion for that particular concept?
Oh, great question. So I like to say first, I consider myself like the new Renaissance person. I have a lot of things that I do, but the platform came from me just being a very positive person. As a young child, I was always very talkative. So that was part of one of my skill sets. And unfortunately, it didn't work very well in the school systems, but I used it to my advantage as I got older. And I realized I had the ability to communicate with people, make them laugh, make them feel good about who they are as a person. And so I took a lot of that skill set into the work world, where I worked in the medical call center for about 8 years. And I was really there to lead people and guide families. And when I was in that facility, I realized that I really wanted to take my passion and my gifts somewhere else. I wanted to touch lives across the globe. I wanted to help people, go through the struggles of challenges and show them how they can change themselves within the challenge. So thus, Champion Up was born. It was a philosophy. It was something that I wanted to give to the world, a platform that they could be a part of, and a platform that works from the heart to the head. And so the emblem, the tiger, it comes from my favorite animal. So it ties back to who I am as a person. It's my favorite color is orange. The tiger represents challenges by all the stripes it has. So it wears it with honor. So I really took the tiger on as the forefront of like, this is what Champion Up represents. It's not about being the best. It's about being better. It's about overcoming. It's about expanding beyond your environment and creating something magical out here in your reality. And that is why I created Champion Up. And I wanted people to realize too, Donna, that everyone's a champion. And the reason why a lot of us don't realize we're champions is because we have been taught and conditioned that champion is only for the athlete. It is only for the person who wins a competition. This is not taken away from anyone out there who have won championships. I have myself, but it is not the only definition. It's actually a 13th century word that means warrior, advocate, or defender of a cause. So I thought about that for a while and I said, okay, champion, cause, advocate, warrior, what can we advocate for in our lives? What can we properly defend? And that is our purpose in life. We have to be clear about what our purpose is. And so we have to stand up to that, champion up to it, and go through those challenges in order to grow into the person that we need to be to experience what we want to experience.
Right. And I 100% agree with you. I look at it from a little bit different perspective. You're working with adults, I'm working with children, and my books are similar in that, I'm constantly saying, that, we all have that superhero inside of us. We just have tools. We just need to recognize it and use them. So I do appreciate your point. And I think that's probably why you and I meld so well together, is that, we have a very similar philosophy when it comes to meeting challenges head on. And your specific philosophy, this Champion Up, challenges people to courageously make change and to become their own champion. Why is that so important to you?
Well, because as human beings, we're here on this planet for three things: to learn, to grow, and to fully express ourselves. The learning part becomes quite easy. The growing part becomes a lot harder because we have to pay attention to what we've learned. And the third step is where really we ascend as human beings on this planet. That is full expression. A lot of us don't get to full expression. We don't get a chance to express those skills, those talents, those abilities that we were actually brought here to do. Now, here's the beautiful thing about life. Life is indifferent. It really won't care if you do it or not. It's not going to force you to. But we miss out on so much when we don't allow ourselves to really have that Champion Up philosophy, because a lot of us have gone through so much in our life where we've decided to just fall back and do what is normal, do what is simple, do what is easy. In the words of the Greek philosopher Socrates, he said, failure is not where you have fallen. Failure is where one remains once they have fallen. And I actually have Socrates, let's see here, tattooed on my forearm.
Oh, wow.
I love his, so he has a philosophy, know thyself. So that was something that I really embraced growing up, was that philosophy. And I took that and said, okay, so if we're falling down, then we have to get back up. And that's where Champion Up came from. Okay, champion up in this spot here. And it's so critical for us as human beings, Donna, because I believe that we are here to make the planet a better place. That's why we were here. That's why. But a lot of us, we get so busy with just getting by. And there's so many of us that know there's more in our lives. We can't figure it out. And so that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to wake up the human soul, electrify it, and get people championed up about stepping into their truth, stepping into their challenges, and making changes, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it hurts.
Right. And I do know that. And you're so good at doing that. And I try to watch as often as I can your podcast, The Purposeful Life, which is ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts. So, wow, amazing there. But it is a great podcast. I've been fortunate enough to be interviewed by you, but I do watch it because the content is so good and it's so useful. And it kind of, I try to listen to it in the morning because it really gets me up and going and kind of attacking the day rather than just trying to get through it, which I find is what I do on most days when I don't listen to you. So I do try to listen to that. But you offer these really intelligent interviews with guests from pretty much every walk of life. So who's been the most surprising for you?
That's a great question. Who has been the most surprising? Oh, I'm gonna think about it. This is, but this is probably the best question I've ever been asked. So this is a good one. Ooh, who has been the most surprising to me? Wow. Honestly, I can't think of that right now because every guest that I've had, they've been very unique in their own way. And I think every guest, to me, it has not been surprising because I had them on the show. So it's like, if I have them on the show, I know what they're going to bring. But I think the most surprising guest, and this is not an ego thing here, probably would have to be me because I never know what I'm going to say when I do a podcast, when I do my own podcast. Like we have podcast hosts, we do the podcast with guests, that we do our own show. I never know what I'm going to say. So there's sometimes I surprise myself and I think, well, I went off the script here, went off the outline here. What am I doing? But it's part of the expression of being honest and upfront. But I think that the guests that I have on my show, they have all shown up just like you, with this open heart, with this ability to teach something that they're doing, what they're actively, courageously doing in their life. I think that to me has just been, I think surprisingly for me, honestly, has been the fact that the show has grown so much because we just never know where things are going to go. I started the show back in 2018. So it's 2022 now. So it's like this grown substantially. And I think that has been a surprise to me of the amount of support that I've gotten from the show, the people that listen to it, like yourself. And because I always believe that, it's not about me, it's about the message, it's about the platform. And when I hear people say good things about the show, that's my surprise. So I danced around your question, but I think I came back and tiptoed in and a little bit.
That's fun. And I didn't want to catch you out.
That's good. I like that. Keeps the brain functioning well, right?
I'm always surprised by the things that your guests have to say. And so that was why that question came up for me, because I'm always surprised at how vast and how wide their knowledge is, because people come into it thinking they're going to talk about one thing, and like I said, you kind of go off script and we learn all these amazing other things. So that's why I was curious as to which one had surprised you the most. But what has been your biggest lesson going through this entire journey since 2018? It's incredible, and I just want to know what you've learned out of all this. I know you teach us an amazing things, but I want to know what you learned.
Be kind to myself. That's the biggest thing I've learned. I as a ambitious person, I think that a lot of people can attest to this. We can really be our worst critics, and we can self-sabotage on so many levels. And we're so good at it. It's happening unconsciously, subconsciously, that it's just happening throughout the day. And I think that from the time that I started to now, there's been so much gradual change and shift, not only in my messaging with how I communicate with people, but also in everything. My face, I've got a beard now, Donna. And how I present myself, that has allowed me to really express myself in a way that is true to me. And I think that the biggest thing I've learned is to get out of my own damn way. Get out of my way.
Yes, I could take a little bit of that own advice too. And it's like I have to leave myself notes to remind myself not to be my worst critic. It's like I literally named my critic as George, and he has to be locked in the closet on days that I'm having a hard time because I just can't listen to him anymore. So I so get that. You do need to be kind to yourself. Even if you go as far as I do, I'm a little out there, but it's like George has got to go in the closet on some days.
Well, I think that there's people that will probably want the big gold nugget from me, is saying, okay, what is this one thing that I can, and it's a multitude of things. I think that everybody is dynamic. So there's multiple parts of you, and you have to be willing to understand and explore those parts.
Mhm.
When I first started speaking,
Mhm.
I dressed up in the suit and tie, like everyone, Donna. I regurgitated the same information of the things that I heard other speakers say, that I inspired to be. And that's what we all do when we first begin. But then I realized that, okay, this is not my audience. This is not my style. What can I do to express Adrian?
Right.
And then came like me, showing my tattoo, showing my earrings, me being charismatic, me being goofy, me being philosophical. I'm bringing all those levels into what I do. And people are like, wow, that's different, because I am different. And I would say too, for people who are listening, be patient. Everybody's timeline is different. If you see someone that's gradually climbing and you're like, wow, how did they get there so fast? You don't know how long they've been doing that. You have to really, like, if you follow around for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you would see
Exactly.
real fast. It's not that easy.
Well, I know. It's like people who tell me that, as a writer that I don't work, it's like, come follow me for a day. You'll see how much non-work I
Exactly.
do.
Come follow you for a day, walk in your shoes for a bit. I think a lot of people don't understand that they're seeing the end result. So I think that as people, we need to focus on the causes of our lives. That's what's important, is what are you consciously creating along the way, and to be kind to yourself, and to, enjoy the journey, no matter how rough it gets, just because you'll look back and be like, wow, I came from way back there. That's interesting.
Right. And I love that, because I'm a big advocate of celebrating those little wins, because they never come again. That first
Mhm.
time never comes again. And so it's like you need to celebrate all of those. And
Yes.
speaking of that, there was a little birdie that told me you have a new book coming out this year, and that the title is Untold Courage.
Hmm.
Anything about that?
Yeah, I do have a book coming out. It's going to be this summer. I'm actually going to be releasing it. We're aiming for my birthday, which is June 23rd. And it's going to be my way of doing the opposite. Some people, they expect gifts for their birthday. My gift is being alive, being here on this planet. So that day is a reminder to me that I showed up here to do something. So my gift for that day is to release the book. And that's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. So can you tell us anything about what's going to be in the book?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of things that are going to be in the book, a lot of aspects of me. One thing I wanted people to understand when this book is that I didn't want to have it be another raw motivational book. This is where Adrian came from this, and this is where he is now, and you can do this X amount of steps. We hear that a lot.
Mhm.
This book, I wanted people to really just see what happens throughout someone's life. So I really thought about Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, and he did the meditations. And so I was a big fan of that book. And I kind of started thinking about, okay, what kind of book do I want to do? And how do I want to reveal parts of me, Adrian, the speaker. So in this book, I've put my deepest thoughts down. I've put down my experiences. Like, there's things in this book that go back into my poetry days, as when I did poetry. There's a poem in there called Untold Courage. And that's where the book came from. It was a spinoff from that particular poem that I used to perform in Seattle at schools and colleges. I got called to do that poem. And then I wanted this book to kind of represent the whole outline of what it is to live that kind of life, and to share with people that courage is not something you do that's a big, vast, or grandiose thing all the time. Courage are those little things throughout the day, throughout one's life, that's being initiated and done just by simply saying yes to something, saying no to something, and taking a chance. That's courage that no one really talks about anymore. So therefore, we live a life where we think that we're not courageous, when the reality is we are. So that book is designed to give people ideas. And I do have things that they can do, exercises they can do within the book. And I just feel very, very excited, because there's one part of the book too where I reveal part of my tap dancing history.
Oh,
And what
wow.
I learned from a great mentor of mine with tap dancing versus creating and carving your life. and how those two play together. So people will see aspects of me in this book. It's like, whoa, I didn't know he was a tap dancer. I didn't know that he did this. I didn't know he did that. That's interesting, because I want people to see that there's multiple sides to us. So this book is just a fun way of me saying hello to the world. Here I am, and giving them the courage to be themselves too.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I was just talking with my granddaughter a week or so ago about it, and she's just like, I just don't understand how you get to your point where you know what you want to do with your life and you're happy and you're passionate. And I'm like, oh my goodness, let's sit down and talk about all of the wrong roads I took. Because I think sometimes that's what happens is you got to take all those side roads and figure out what you don't really want to do.
Yes.
You got to kind of, it's almost a matter of elimination. So, it's so fascinating to find out what people have done along their journey and how it really does play into what they become passionate about and how they approach that passion. So I can't wait to get this book, and I'm really hoping that the author will send me a signed copy, but I don't know. I'll have to talk to him later about that. So now your logo and brand features a tiger. And so being this the year of the tiger, why is it important to get that book out this year?
It's interesting because the book itself was already designed to come out this year. And it wasn't even really about it being the year of the tiger, but I think everything just lined up, the stars of alignment. And I was like, well, here we go. Here's the tiger. Because I want to go off on a tangent here, Donna, but when I was in the store, I wear my clothes and I have my emblem on it, my company logo. And they were like, oh, you're a Bengals fan. That's awesome. And I'm like, well, actually, I like the Bengals, but I've had this logo for over 7 years. So I think it belongs to me. So, but the year of the tiger is so important for the audience that's listening, is because whether you believe in astrology or not, the year of the tiger is a year of great abundance, great prosperity, great opportunities happening. And this is according to Chinese astrology. So it's so important that this book was released, because it just adds more energy to this wonderful thing that's going on in 2022. And I want people to understand that you got to have the eye of the tiger and to watch out for what's going to happen and what can happen for you in 2022. So this is the year I want people to step into their courage and to walk through their challenges and to change what they need to change within the challenge. Because if we look at the word challenge, inside that word is the word change. So it's up to us to change our challenges. So this year we have to have the courage to do that. And that's why I think it's so important to release that book, because that's my way of showing you that if I'm willing to be vulnerable and share this intimate, deep book with aspects of me that typically I would not share on interviews or online, then it's me opening up to the world saying, vulnerability is a strength. And I want people to realize that no matter who you see, how much they have, what they're doing, at the end of the day, they're human. Hello, they're human just like you. And they have learned how to be a pretty good damn human by doing some really good damn things. And I want people to understand that it is time for us now to stop glorifying things as not being what we could be a part of, and to start realizing that we are a part of something major. We can be co-collaborators of creation, and we need more people to step up and to expose those beautiful aspects of themselves. So that's why I want this book to come out this year.
I am so impressed. I'm always so impressed when I talk to you and listen to you. So you just always completely blow me away. So when the book comes out in June, where will they be able to find the book?
So they'll be able to find the book. I'm going to put it through Amazon. I also have it on my website. So they'll be able to access it through my website. That is adrianstarks.net. And I'm pretty sure that you'll have a link here for them at some point. But they can go there to find out updates on what's happening with the book and where, when it's going to be released. Because this, Donna, it's like there's with books, you can set a date.
Yeah.
but we just don't know what happens when we have other things involved. So I set a date to make sure I'm committed to that. And that's why I want everyone to realize this year too, set dates for things. If you say you're going to do something, hold yourself accountable and say, I'm going to do this on this date. And even if you don't believe it, set the freaking date. And that's what they can expect in June.
Right. And I'm so impressed with that attitude. I do talk to people about that all the time, about setting deadlines, but I also take it just a little bit step further. You want to set deadlines and you want to hold yourself accountable to those deadlines, but things happen in life. Life happens. So if life happens, don't beat yourself up too much if you miss it a little. So it's like it's kind of like, you want to achieve, a millionaire status, or you want to achieve something by the time you're 30. We all do this when we're younger. It's like, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to do this. And it doesn't happen until you're 32 or 35. That doesn't mean it was a bad idea or it was a bad deadline. That just means it took just a little bit longer. So we have to realize sometimes life gets in the way, but I do appreciate that. So now we're going to shift gears just a little bit and talk about what we normally talk about here on the Writer's Parachute. So every writer has some unique challenge when they are trying to get their books out into the world. And I want to know what unforeseen obstacle you ran into.
I would say just being afraid to get it out there, to ask the question to people. I think the first step is when you're trying to get that book out there, you're going to first think in terms of, I don't know if I can do that. How can I do that? You have to inquire people like yourself, Donna, ask people like Donna, ask other people who have released books, get their insight on what steps they took and what you need to do taking the next steps. And the most important thing is just completing your book. A lot of you out there right now, you got that book and it is not done because you are telling yourself that I don't have time. Right now, I don't have the resources to get somebody to publish the book, to edit the book. And so all these things are what we call getting in your own way. And when you can stop doing that and just say, I need to finish the book. Once I finish the book, then I take the next step of seeing how to get it out there and start talking to people about it. Just saying, hey, I have a book that I'm getting ready to put out to the world and I would love your support. I have a book here. Can you write the foreword to my book? Which you're a great writer. Could you do that for me? And can you read my book and let me know your experience with it before I put it out there? There's so many things you can do to get that book going. I think the most important thing is just the energy behind getting the book out there, because that book is not going to go from your table, your laptop, to the world with you doing no action behind it. So for me, I had to realize that the book had to be completed. I sat on that book, honestly, I'll be honest, because I'm about being vulnerable. I sat on my book for about a good 2 years, actually, because I kept saying each year that I'm going to release the book, release the book, release the book. And then it was last year, I just said, you know what, I'm setting a date. And it's going to happen on this day, because now I have a duty, an obligation to make sure I don't let my people down that are waiting for the book. So now I know it's not about me anymore.
And that is such a good point. People forget that they do have resources around them. All we see a lot of times with especially new authors and writers is they just see this huge giant mountain in front of them and they're like, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. And it's like, you honestly have resources around you you don't even think about. People who speak well, they're probably pretty good at doing first line edits for you. You have people that read all the time. They know what should go in a book and what shouldn't go in a book, or how it should sound, or if it's confusing or stuff like that. Reach out to your resources. There are people like me out there in the world. There are all kinds of writing groups that you can belong to and connect up with an accountability partner. It's like there are so many places that you can do these things, and I do appreciate you bringing that forward. And it's honestly one of the most basic things that we kind of forget.
Yeah.
Before you can run, you have to stand up. So,
certainly do. You certainly do. You have to make that first step. And I think that is where a lot of people get caught, is the not making the move of just getting the book to someone, or completing the book. So I think that If you want your book to be in a big store, be a New York Times best-selling, that's a lot of people want. Great. That's a great vision to have. But you first have to do the legwork. Yeah, think about all these people who have these books that are bestsellers, et cetera. They've had to do the legwork behind it. And once again, we're going to go back to what you were saying before. No one really sees behind what's happening. They always see the result. And I think we have to really be careful with not looking and comparing. And I always have this saying, don't compare, don't compete, create. Focus on creating. And this is something that's going to be quite funny to you. So speaking of that, this is why I love this conversation. Speaking of that, to get the book out there, a lot of people compare themselves to other people. And I want to share a quick, the Aesop fable, the tortoise and the hare. Everybody knows this one. And it's one phrase says, slow and steady wins the race. And it's what a lot of people will teach, right? But no one really knows the really back end of this story that I figured it out. There was one word that separated the hare, or let's going to say the rabbit. Everyone says rabbit now. The rabbit and the turtle. So the rabbit was highly distracted, jumping from one thing to the next. It thought it could beat the turtle because it was faster, quicker, and it got caught up. It decided to take a nap under a tree because the turtle was so slow. It woke up. The turtle had already surpassed it and was crossing the finish line. By the time the rabbit woke up and tried to chase the turtle, it was already there. And the whole idea of the story that's being revealed is that the rabbit was in it to compete. The turtle was in it to complete. Two of the same words, but one letter separates them. That's the losing letter. So I want to tell people now is that don't compete. Focus on completing what you're doing. Just complete it. No matter how long it's going to take you. Like I said, you could be that slow turtle just kind of edging along. But what people will see is when they drop their heads and they look back up, you're all the way over here now.
Right.
And, it's quite interesting. Donna, you're from the South, and I'm from the South. I was actually born in the South. I was born in Texas, but I moved to Washington State when I was like in middle school. So most of my life has been in Washington State, but in the South, I remember being on a farm. My dad had horses and we call it the grazing principle. You let the horses out and all of a sudden they're grazing. And then the next minute later, they're grazing further down, but they're going a little bit at a time. And that's kind of how you have to see working through your book. You take one page at a time, one chapter at a time. And the next thing you know, you're done. Then you are completed it. Then you put it out there. So I just wanted to say that we have to focus more on completing.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you. And again, writing a book and publishing a book is a marathon, not a sprint, because once it's out there, it's out there forever. So you're always going to be promoting and talking about it. So again, you don't have to win the race today. It may go on for the next 5 years. So, again, very good analogy with your tortoise and hare or your rabbit and turtle. It is absolutely true. Just staying focused, staying in your lane and going for what you want and not chasing after what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, that's one of the lessons I learned, was not to compare and to chase people. I really realized that everyone there's over 7 billion people on the planet. And there's a saying that out of 7 billion people, 5% are not going to like you, no matter what you say or do.
Right.
But you take that calculation, I may be off. So if I got some people on here that are huge into mathematics and they're great at numbers, forgive me. But according to that, there's going to be 500 million people on this planet that won't give 2 cents about what you're doing. Your job is not to focus on those people. Your mission is to put your message out there because someone is going to be connected to that. It's like saying if you like a particular type of food, some person may not like that food. You like this type of music, that person may not like that type of music. So we all have differences. But someone is going to like your book or what you have to say. And I encourage you that are listening today to not allow yourself, that critic, to talk you down and tell you that your book is not good enough, that your ideas are not good enough, that you're not a good writer. There is actually a book by an author named Dorothea Brand. It's called Wake Up and Live. And she talked about this aspect of not working through what they call the writer's block and the writer's procrastinations. And so I encourage you all to think about, get that book, read it, find some excerpts from it, because that will be a source for you to really think about when you're sitting down one day and you're like, I don't feel like writing today. Or I think I'm going to push my book off another month or two. Think about what Dorothea is going to be saying in that book, because it really helped me to start writing more and getting myself out there. So it's really a powerful thing when you start to write and believe in yourself and express that part of you.
Well, that's an amazing tip. And we will, just a brief reminder, we are going to have all of the links to everything in the show notes for you. And I will get the link to that book on Amazon, because that's a great tip from Adrian. And, and I just have to say that, there is always going to be somebody out there desperately needing to hear your words. Now, whether it's a large amount of people or it's one single person isn't going to matter, because that person really needs to hear what you have to say. And if you focus on them, then the rest will just show up. So
the rest will show up. Yeah. It's what you just said was very heart touching, because I remember there was so many times when I was younger that I was just, why is there nobody around? Why isn't one liking anything I'm doing? Why isn't one supporting? Family supported, but I had a lot of friends that didn't support. And I want people to understand too, that as you're doing something that's new, that's really a part of who you are, you're going to have a lot of people around you that may not get that. And that is okay. Don't stop because they don't get it or they don't support it. You continue to grow forward. You continue to create your own change within the challenge. And, Ralph Emerson, a great philosopher, said this. He said that if you can write a better book, preach a better sermon, or build a better mousetrap, no matter how far you're in the woods, the world will beat a path to get to your door. I'll never forget that quote. That was one of my favorite quotes of all time. So just think about that quote.
Yeah, I actually like that. And I use one that's similar, and I'm going to completely mangle the quote. But the bottom line is this, that you can build the best thing in the world, but until you build it, nobody knows it's there. So just go build what you can today.
Yes.
So, because you don't know what you need until you start working on it. It's like, we don't know. It's like when, I read a lot about some of the inventors in their day. They were considered almost crazy and outlandish, and people thought they were just somebody they should avoid, and they weren't often supported.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it may be just that you're ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
So, that, and that's okay too. It's like blazing trails is always an amazing place to be. So instead of following behind. So I think personally that you are blazing trails, Adrian. But I wanted to go ahead and make sure we know where the listeners can connect with you and your podcast. Again, he's going to give you these links, but we will have them in the show notes. So
yeah, so the podcast, The Purposeful Life Show, it's on all major podcast recording platforms. So if you're listening to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, just go in there and type in The Purposeful Life Show and you will find it. Or you can even just Google it, because everyone Googles these days.
Right.
But most importantly, you can also locate it on my website, adrianstarks.net. Just go there and there's a podcast tab. Click on that, go down. You can actually subscribe to the show, which I would love for you to do. And from that point, you can subscribe into your favorite podcast platform. And the podcast itself, The Purposeful Life Show, is the reason why I have it that way is because I believe that it's not you asking what your purpose is, it's what you decide your purpose is going to be. And I want us to understand that the people that bring on the show, like Donna, a brilliant writer and author, they know their purpose because they have created it. A lot of you right now don't know your purpose because you're not diving in and trying out new and different things and taking the risks, taking the chances, because you're thinking that your purpose is going to fall into your lap. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. Your purpose happens when you become purposeful towards something. So when you're listening to this show, the Purposeful Life Show, every person on this show is purposeful about something they're doing. and they're passionate about it. It comes from the heart. People on the show are just not there to talk about, I want to get you into my program so you can be a part of I have people on the show that have programs, they have things, but I'm after the why.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they do what they do?
Right.
And so I want to inspire you all when you're listening to the show to think about that and listen to the episode with me and Donna. Scroll down and listen to that episode. It's the way that Donna talks about her book. And I read the book, The Courage of a Mouse. And we talked about that book. And you can hear the level of passion she has and the reason why she does what she does. So I want you just to go and listen to that episode and to let us know what you think about it, because I think it was a very powerful one for me, honestly.
Thank you. Thank you. That is so kind of you. And it's, and I honestly take your advice to heart. That is part of the reason that I call this podcast The Writer's Parachute, because I am so willing to go jump off that cliff and build a parachute on the way down. And sometimes you just have to be willing to do it. You just have to be willing to just go, you know what? Nobody's going to show me. I'm just going to figure it out for myself. So, and I love doing that. That's just kind of my jam, is to go, figure it out. So, and I feel so inspired by you to be able to do that. And I know that there are so many people like you who have my back and will catch me. So I don't worry too much about it. And I hope that we find some listeners who will be inspired by you and your podcast and of course, your upcoming book. So do you have any other upcoming events that they should know about where they can maybe go hear you speak?
Yeah, so I am actually doing some events in the Vancouver area. That's British Columbia in Canada. In the summer, we're doing huge conferences for young students. It's called Mental Health Matters. I'll be putting that on the website. We're living in a time now with pandemic where we really need to help the youth. They really need some guidance, some encouragement, because they are truly being socially challenged. And that's something that we need to talk more about. So I'll be doing talks up there relative to growing forward and stepping into the changes of things and allowing yourself to work through those changes. So I'll be doing that. I'm going to be doing some talks here around the US. I'll be putting that onto the website. Okay. And I have some things coming up. I have a talk show that's actually being in the midst of being formed now, and with a business partner of mine. And so we're putting that together. And just a lot of things are just coming up. Look for me on narrations. I just got through actually narrating a children's book. So, so as many things and here's the thing, everything that I love to do is coming full circle because I'm allowing myself to be expressive in that. And here's the thing I want to tell everyone, opportunity knocks, but you still have to open the door. And there are sometimes some doors will close as soon as you open them. But there's a lot of times there's so many doors that are open. All you have to do is just get up and just go through it. And if you do that, I'm not going to say it's easy, but you will find that there are so many other things that you can experience that can bring you joy, fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness that you never ever imagined before. And that is because I'm living from that. And do I go through struggles and challenges? Of course I do. I have my days where I'm just like, you know what? I need to figure out something. I'm in a really downward mood. However, I think about what I'm experiencing in my life, what I'm sharing with other people. That brings me up. So all of you out there, get your writing on. Listen to Donna's podcast. Get yourself inspired. And it is now, not later. Someday is not on my calendar. It is today. Let's do this. Let's get you guys to champion up, step up, and start creating something beautiful. We need your words out there. We need your book. We need your voice. Please step in with courage.
Right. And thank you. That is so wonderful. And I'm just going to add one little thing to that. It's like, nobody can talk about the darkness if you've never visited. Mm-hmm. So, it's so don't avoid it. It's like, we got to go through that so we can talk about the other side when we get there. So I appreciate that. And I am so thankful that you're with us today. Was there anything else that you wanted to include before we close this out and I get on the ripcord of a new tip?
The only thing that I would like to include is just everything takes time and that changes are inevitable. Either you can be dragged by change or you can roll with it. The dragging part, trust me, ain't so fun. I've been there a million times. And now is a time where you must not wait for things to get better. You must become better. It's not about waiting for other people to do better. It's about you doing better. Everything comes back to you. And remember, when you point a finger at someone or something out there, there's 3 fingers pointing right back at you. You're just as responsible. And so now is a time, no matter what your age is, where you're from, what has happened in your past, all that matters is that you are a creative human being with the power to create your own change, and you got to do it.
I don't even know if I can go on after that. It's like, man, you just said that so well. I don't know what I can say after that. But we are going to go ahead and pull the ripcord on a tip for today. We're going to talk about writing today, and I'm going to try and dovetail it a little bit into what Adrian was talking about with taking that first step about finding your resources and support and getting yourself into the writing idea. And a lot of times it's about setting aside time. Now, we all talk about, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. You know how I wrote my first book? I set aside 15 minutes every night before I went to bed. I was always astounded by how many words that I could write in 15 minutes. And a lot of times what would happen is I would get into that first 5 or 10 minutes and it would just take off and the alarm would go off and I would never even hear it. And I'd write for maybe an hour or 45 minutes. Sometimes it was just 15 minutes. Sometimes it was only 10 minutes. Sometimes it was one question or just a sentence. But you know what? I always looked at that going, that's one less sentence I have to write tomorrow. That's one less paragraph I have to write next week. So give yourself that gift of just a little time, even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes, even if it's a break time or on your lunch hour, it can be done. And you would be amazed at how quickly I honestly wrote a 32,000 word book with 10 to 15 minutes every night in a month. It's completely doable. If I can do it, anybody can do it. At the time, my life was completely upside down, but I was determined. And that's all it takes is a little bit of determination. And I want you to remember, you do have resources and you have, your family has expectations of your time and friends have expectations of your time. Just give yourself that gift of saying to them, you know what, I need this 15 minutes every day. It's not much to ask. I don't think that anybody would begrudge you that time. So I want you to think about finding that time, taking that first step, looking at your resources and getting that writing done in 2022. We're so excited to have more and more books out there, more and more authors. It is an amazing journey. And I could not have imagined when I put out my first book, when I was writing my first book, that I would ever be here today interviewing you, Adrian, or interviewing anybody, or doing 1,001 things that I do now as an author and a writer and all the other things that I do besides that. So, it's a journey and you just have to start. And it's just that very first step out, and do it afraid. It's okay. We got you. So I am so thankful for Adrian being here today. He is an amazing, inspirational person. He has the Champion Up website. It is his philosophy. He has the podcast, The Purposeful Life, and he has a new book coming out called Untold Courage. He is a speaker, podcaster, and best-selling author and founder of Champion Up. I hope you go visit Adrian. It's Adrian Starks. I don't know why I want to say Sparks. It's Starks.net. That's ADRIANSTARKS.net. Also the championup.net. You can check that for his calendar, and both of them have links to his podcast and to all the amazing things that he does and his calendar. So I hope you guys go check that out. And again, thank you so much, Adrian, for being here today. And I hope you come back. I can't wait to talk to you, Dan. In fact, I think I'm going to have you back when this book is out. So,
Absolutely. I'd love to be back. And it was great to be on the show today. You're absolutely wonderful host, and I had an extraordinary time.
all right, awesome. So until next time, I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope that all of your writing and author dreams land well. Until next time, bye.